Okay, the math professor is on the air once more, and woe to the wicked. All right. All right. There we go. We don't want that. We want this. Yes, there we go. All right. So we're still working on learning Word. And I'm hoping our librarian will have her videos fixed and ready for us soon so that we can take a virtual library tour and learn about getting into the databases of various publications, particularly peer-reviewed publications. All right, so here we go, document 1. All right, so first of all, I've got a blank document here. Let's do save as in the computer skills file, and Whiting homework number 6, and it is 8/31/2020. Okay, now, in this class, I'm a real stickler for your file names. And going forward, as our students get, have more and more gone through computer skills, that will be a point in your favor or a point against you, as it were, in the future. All right, so, of course, we want to have a header. Okay, ENGR 1, 2, 3. Homework number 6. Okay, but usually homework is not spelled with a 2 in the middle. Oh, let me make sure this is large enough for y'all to see. And again, the date is 8/31/2020. So, I've really kind of spent time on the Home tab and the Insert tab. We've looked just a tiny bit at these others. But I want to kind of go through some of them, and again, I'm praying our librarian will be ready for us next time. All right, so you'll notice here on the Design tab, they give us all kinds of different formatting for how we can put together our documents. Okay, and if I hit the drop down, it gives me even a couple more. All right, so let me go ahead and put this, all right, homework number 6, right, go back to my design tab. Pardon me. A quick piece of hard candy. All right, so I go here, right, this, the first one is kind of what is already set up on the computer, but then these others start to get a bit different down the line. Right, so I'm just gonna choose this one, even though I, as you may already remember, don't like these sans serif styles, or I shot the serif, as the old song from my high school days almost said. I can come over here and I can select colors to go with the document. Now we need to be careful when we do that, because often people get so carried away with being artistic that what they end up doing is actually creating a document that you can not read because the colors don't have enough contrast between them. All right, we can look at the fonts. Of course, on the Home tab, we can look at the fonts, and you can see, oh my dog, we have so many fonts to choose from. You can't believe it. We can look at our paragraphs spacing. The classic black and white, there's no space before the paragraph, but there's 8 points after the paragraph. So the paragraphs are separated out a little bit. So let me, all right. So this is my first paragraph. This is my second paragraph. All right, so now I've got 2 paragraphs here. I go back to design, go to the paragraphs spacing, right? I can go here. There is no space in between those paragraphs except a little tiny bit. Compact, still pretty close, but a little bit more space. Tight, we have a little bit of line spacing and a little bit of paragraph spacing. Right, so we can look through this and we can change the way that we do things pretty easily. Effects, you can get effects in the in this, so that let's say I want to do top shadow. Uh-oh. All right, I'm going to be forced to confess, I am not 100% sure how those effects are affecting us. I'm sure, though, Victoria will correct me in a moment.
I actually have never used that key, ever, of all the years I've done Word.
Well, as I said earlier, putting in some of this stuff can be interesting. But again, we have to keep in mind, this is all to create effective communication, and not that we are just looking, we're just looking to be artistic. Well, maybe you are looking to be artistic. We can put in a watermark, and where are my watermarks not showing up? Right, we can put in one of these watermarks that already exists, or we can create a custom watermark, which can be a picture watermark, right? We can select a picture that, and that will be kind of faintly in the background. So in fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. And what have I got here? I don't know, it says selfie, such and such and such and such. I don't know what it is, but I'm putting it in. Right, so I click OK, and it flashed on for a minute to show me it's kind of a weird picture, but okay, whatever. We can do a page color if we want, but again, the problem is you may not have enough contrast with your letters, and it will be an awful lot of ink to print anything like that out. So for your, so there might be a reason you want to do that, right? We might want to put up a warning sign, and we'll make that like yellow with black borders, right? In that case, that would be a very appropriate thing to do, is use that extra ink, right? And why do we use yellow for warnings? Well, none of you have had human factors, so I don't expect you to know. But yellow is the first color your brain processes. That's why warning signs tend to be in yellow, with black, which then is high contrast. In fact, if you want to avoid accidents, owning a yellow car is an extremely smart idea. I don't know about you guys, I want to avoid accidents. I've already had too many in my life. Now, I'm not going to leave color on. I'm going to go back to white for the color, but if you want to, feel free, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do a border. I'm going to do I could do a box border, or a shadow, or a 3D border, or custom. I'm going to go with a box. I kind of like the hyphenated line. The color automatic, no, I want red, comrade. right? And I can make that line wider if I want. In fact, I can make it all the way up to 6 point, oops, that's the wrong one. I could go all the way up to 6 points. That's actually a bit excessive. I'm just gonna go with 1 point. Right, I could go for an art border. It looks like I've got apples. I don't know, maybe those are ice cream cones there. Looks like a hippie border. This is so small I can't really see it. Right, but they give you a whole variety of different borders that you could possibly do that are kind of arty. Again, think about what kind of message this is. If it's kind of a fun thing, then you could go like with the lollipop border, or you know, some other thing, but choose carefully. You know, don't send a lollipop border to your boss when you're sending him a report about the failure of one of his pet projects. All right, so click OK on that. The layout, right? Well, you can set your margins as you wish, and usually I just leave them at the default margins unless I have a special purpose. Like for when I was working on my PhD, the comprehensive exam, they had already told me there were going to be a bunch of math problems on. So I copied all the formulas out of my calculus book and some other formulas besides that were on the flyleaf. And so I had a front and back page, and I made the borders as tiny as possible to get more formulas in. Right, but most of the time, I just leave it on the normal 1-inch borders all around. That works for me. Should have brought this up when we were doing the birthday flyers. Orientation, they give you a choice of portrait or landscape. They don't give you a choice of slanticular. Even though that would be somewhat interesting in, right? So portrait just means that it's going to be more or less like we usually see documents. Landscape is going to be more like, usually when I do these little inspirational sayings, I do them in landscape. And I can tell you guys feel like you're getting so much out of this. All right, so size. Ordinarily, we do 8.5 by 11s. Legal is another possibility. With the particular printer we have in here, you would have to open the little door at the back and put legal paper in. And then there are some other sizes, most of which I have never really used. Executive statement, A4 is a type of paper that they use in a lot of the rest of the world. I can't think if I have ever even seen a piece of A4 paper in America. Right, you go on down, there's all kinds of paper options. But again, most of the time, what we're gonna be using is 8.5 by 11 or 8.5 by 14, letter size or legal size. Now, we used to have a printer here in the engineering department that would print 11 by 17, which is essentially just two pieces of 8.5 by 11 before they cut them in half. I really wish we could still do that, because I used to make posters for the engineering club events that way. But enough of this. We could make it so that we have columns, 2 columns, or 3 columns. We can get columns, well, I don't have enough text to really make this, right, so there's all kinds of things we could do with columns, and ordinarily, I don't fool with this much. There might be some reason. Here, let me go back. We'll go back to 1 column here, go down. Right, sometimes we might want to do something like this. All right. Didn't separate it out enough. Where we do a thing, A, right, then we jump over to the other column. Damn it. It's not column jumping. You know, this is the first point in our argument. All right, how do I get to the other column? Oh, bloody hell. Okay, another good reason not to fool with columns. You know, again, there might be perfectly fine reasons that we want to do columns. I'm actually thinking of changing my my book to columns, so it can be made out of an 8.5 by 11 folded in half. All right, B and so on. All right. Let me make sure I go back to 1 column here. All right, there we go. We actually, with the columns, I should have used the break to go to the next column. We could do text wrapping, again, around a picture. We can have section breaks, and so on down the line. You know, I'm not going to pretend that I'm gonna teach you guys everything there is to know about this. Some of it you're gonna learn and use to fit your individual styles. Hyphenation, oh, I didn't even know I could set my hyphenation on automatic. So if I write a word like anti-disestablishmentarianism, establishmentarianism. All right, so now the longest word in the English language is all right. So I can see that already my sentence isn't long enough. So I'm going to go back here and say, what is the longest word in the English language? Right? And you can see there, it broke anti-disestablishmentarianism up and put in a hyphen. Now, unfortunately, it broke it in the wrong place. The break is supposed to be on, based on syllables. So it should have been either after DIS here, or after EST. No, I could be wrong about that. Maybe that is the right place. It's possible it doesn't know exactly where to break it because it's not in its dictionary, right? Word is just a pretty incredible program. It has a certain amount of words like that are very common words, right? But we could put in a word like turbidity. Oh, all right, it knows turbidity. Let's try a really uncommon one like swear. All right, for some reason it is not. Usually, I have used that word before, spelling and grammar check. All right, we're going to ignore that. Okay, well, maybe they put more words in since the last time I checked.
Mine shows as an error.
Yours does an error?
Mine too.
Swear is, obviously it's a kind of a rare word. It means lazy. All right, where was I? Oh yeah, layout. All right, we have indentation and spacing for our paragraph. And if we want to get more complicated, you'll notice there's a little box with an arrow down in the corner, and we can break that out so that we get more choices on things that we want to do. We can set our tabs. Right, so all of that is useful stuff. Right, over here, the arrangement panel, we haven't really put anything in. Here, let me go ahead and insert a picture. All right, but I want to go to Documents, Computer Skills. Now here's a lovely picture of me leaving the outhouse at the funeral, at the South Prairie Cemetery. All right, so then I could, all right, so anyway, I've done that. I can go back to layout and selection panel. All right, why aren't you giving me the positioning, wrap text, etc.? Well, that was certainly interesting, but, there we go. Position, I just had to move the picture around apparently to get to that. Right, so I could choose position, do it like this. Well, that's not really what I meant to do. Let's go back from that. Let's try wrap text, inline with text, square. Right, so we could choose a variety of ways. Usually, if I was doing this, it would be I'd have more text that I was working with that I wanted to make sure it was arranged just the way I wanted. All right, no, that's not really what I wanted at all.
You want it arranged around the picture? Is that what you're?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. See, I'm doing it so I'm wrapping the text. Right, but it's not wanting to now just let me. Let's try coming down here, and of course, this is one place that I hate fooling with, having to fool too much with pictures in Word, because it never seems to understand what I want to do. Now, of course, I have to assume there we go. What I did was I fixed the position on the page, right? And then that let me, you call that a fixed position? Right, and that lets me move the cursor down. Okay. References, if you get into academia, even if you just go to get a master's degree, it's very possible you're gonna have to do a lot of very formal academic papers. And for,
Oh, okay, I figured it out.
right. We can insert citations. Now, one thing about this is, right, you'll notice I'm inserting a citation, type of source, book. I already got a book, so I would have the correct Krista Donaldson, the title, The Engineering Student Survival Guide. You know, feel free to do this with a book you've got right there with you, if you would rather. All right, the year this was published. All right, this would be a 2005 edition. City is New York. Publisher, McGraw Hill. Is that the publisher? Yes. And see, as you can see, it'll give you a whole bunch of other fields if you need those. Ordinarily, this would be enough. Wait a minute, not McGraw-3 Hill though, McGraw Hill. Right now, for example, I don't see there you go, edition is 3rd edition. But maybe I'll write that out to make it look a little more. Right? So it gives you all kinds of different things. For example, if we were to look at a, all right, okay, and let's, all right, insert the citation. Have we already got that citation? No, we don't. That's the one, all right. See, now I've got it set to APA, and this is kind of the APA style when you quote something, right? But I could insert a new source, and instead of a book, it could be a book section. Sometimes books are made where, for example, Winter would have written a section, Victoria would have written one, Adrian would have written one, and so on. Right? And we might just be quoting from that book section. It could be a journal article, could be an article in a periodical. It could be from conference proceedings, from a report. a website, a document that came from a website, an electronic source. It might be from art, although, I'm wondering how that works out. I've never had to quote a piece of art. A sound recording, a performance film, interview, patent, case, I assume that's a legal case, or miscellaneous. Oh man, those miscellaneous citations. So for example, in one of the projects that I did at Ohio University, I had to cite an interview with my brother. We were doing a project proposal on building a framework that would help your legs move if you had some form of paralysis. And my brother is a physician, so I called him up and I said, what kind of conditions might cause this, right? And he went through a whole bunch of things that let me start doing more research on these things. Right, so there might be all kinds of different things that we have to cite, right? Because in an academic type of paper, you can't just say, you can't just throw something out there without attribution unless it is so well known that everybody in the audience already knows it, right? If you say, if you trip, you may fall down. Okay, well, you don't have to cite that, right? You don't have to go and say, this is from Newton's Principality of Gravity. No, everybody knows that. Even when you're a little tiny kid, you learn quickly that if you trip, you might fall down. Right? But if, on the other hand, you want to quote the law of gravitational attraction, then we might do a citation. All right. We can automatically build a bibliography using this. Now, there are actually a whole lot of different programs that work like this. The one I'm most familiar with is called Write and Cite, that we used to use at Ohio University. And the great thing about that was I could just automatically import citations from the library. So I would be making a list of the, using the Write and Cite program, I'd be making a list of the different articles and books I wanted to cite, and then that could be imported into the Write and Cite program, so that when I was writing my paper, I didn't have to go through what I showed you with Krista Donaldson's book and put everything in. I ended up having to put some in by hand because I screwed up importing the citation, or the particular thing wasn't in a format that could be done, right? So managing sources. Oh, I can see I've I actually put some in before, and I do not know if I could, sources available in master list. Sources. All right, it looks like you may be able to download citations into this, but I don't think we have time for me to trip my way through that and without using up all the rest of our class time and maybe then some. You'll notice here, style, it says APA. APA is the American Psychology Association. They are a very common style to use when citing, right? But they give you, oh, okay. Close this, right? I've got a drop-down list, APA, Chicago, GB 7714, I don't even know what that is. Ghost, two ghosts, Harvard. IEEE is a style you're very likely to use in your engineering or technology career. MLA is another one that's very popular in academia, but most of the time in engineering we use either IEEE or APA. And if you want to do a paper for a student conference, they may tell you your citations have to be IEEE style. Or they may give you a list. You can do IEEE or APA or MLA. Like I said, I like the APA style. But there's a lot more styles than that. It's just that Word doesn't give you those choices. If you use an add-in program like Write and Cite, you'll be able to use pretty much any style at all, including the really obscure ones where nobody will have any idea what you're doing. Okay, we can insert a caption to label the picture. And we can insert a table of figures. You saw before how we put in a table of contents when we were doing the insertion homework, right? And this is very much the same. We can mark things so that we can find them quickly. We can insert an index, so you can not only put a table of contents, you can put an index at the end of your paper or book or whatever you're writing. And you can put in a table of authorities. I've never had to do that. And apparently it's pretty much a legal thing. So I think we could just skip that part. The mailings tab, you can actually write a letter. Okay, here. Right, we could write this, and I haven't fooled with this in Word. I used to use this a lot back in the day when I had a word processor. A word processor was kind of a cross between the old-fashioned typewriter and a computer. So all it did was word processing, similar to, of course, what we have here. But of course, the computers we're using are very multifunctional, where the word processor had one function, and that was processing words.
You're talking about a Word Perfect program?
No, I'm talking about a machine
Oh, machine.
that
Okay.
it had some kind of programming for word processing, but it didn't tell you what.
Oh, okay.
And you could put some various things in. For example, when I was doing shows, I had a list of different newspapers and magazines and TV stations and so on. So we would have the contact person, the name of the newspaper or magazine or TV station, radio station, whatever. Right, so that when I did a mail merge, I would write it, dear blank, our upcoming show, Desire Under the Dunes, right, and I would put the information in, and it would fill in the blanks where, right, when, like, it would have an address thing, right, and it would fill in, all right, KRISTV, P.O. Box so, Corpus Christi, Texas, et cetera, et cetera. Right, and you could do a mail merge, and it would automatically spit out the publicity personalized for each of these sources. And I found that got a lot of attention, right? You could select the recipients by typing a list or using an existing list, or choose from your Outlook contacts. Oh man, that is fancy. Right, so it was all the way down, and all right, why won't it? Why is it not letting me insert a merge field? All right, well, I don't know why it won't. As I said, on my word processor, I was just an expert on this. It may be that sometime down the line, you'll have your own business or whatever, and you'll need to learn more about how this works. All right, so on review, for example, spelling and grammar I've talked to you about before. One thing I might need to do is certain documents I want to know how many words, right? So you can see I've used 66 words. I'm hoping you can read that. Just highlight everything and hit the word count, right? It'll tell you. For example, if you are gonna submit a student paper, they may want you to submit an abstract first. And they'll say something like, the abstract has to be no more than 150 words or 500 words or whatever. And we actually recently had to do this for the school. We had to submit a plan to the New Mexico Higher Education Division with our plan about how we were gonna reopen the school. Well, under every question, they said only 150 words. So luckily, we wrote it by committee where we were saying, no, that's 156 words, we gotta cut 6 words somehow. And things of this nature. You can translate to other languages. Oh, I need to close this. You can translate to other languages your but not all languages necessarily, unless they're somehow loaded in. For example, could we translate to Navajo? Well, we'd have to use the online translation service, would be my guess. My guess is let's try translating something here. Translate. All right, so I would have to send that over the internet. So apparently all translation is going to be done, by that, except that I can choose the language I want to use the language that I want to use, and you can see, oh my God, what a long, long list. And even when we talk English, right, they're saying Australian, Belize, Canada, Caribbean, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, oh my God, the list goes on. Estonian, always one of my favorite languages. No, I'm lying, I don't know Estonian. Right, but I might want to put in a comment. Right, and so my comment might be something like, got to finish this later. Right, so you can put comments on somebody's document so that you know, somebody asks you to look over a paper, whatever, they send you that electronically, you can put in comments. We can also, right, and I could delete the comment. If I click on the comment, I could delete it. I could go to the other comments. I could show the comments as a breakout, or like it is here, or I could subsume that into wee little tiny comments. So I could do track changes. Track changes is something that we very often do in documents where I write the long history of the United States we have built, all right, then I might look at that and say, you know what? I might say we have tried to build and then hit backspace for that. Why aren't you tracking my changes here? Oh, here we go. Show comments. All right. Reviewing pane. Okay, boy, it's not showing it exactly like I expect. One thing that I notice seems to have happened lately is Microsoft seems to have started updating Word, whether you like the old version or not. And I assume that's the same with Excel and PowerPoint. I just don't use those as much and at the moment, and haven't noticed. All right, so I've got the reviewing pane here, and you'll notice I've got an accept and reject here. So go to the next one. All right, got to finish this later, it's on the comment. I'm gonna reject that, and it goes away. Right, so I go to the next one, I accept it. Right, so now all of those things have been settled. So we can compare versions of documents. Sometimes we might, sometimes we want to compare two versions to make sure they're the same, or we want to combine revisions together. And we can restrict the editing. Right, so that we put together a document, we don't want it to be changed, maybe it's an important report, or for some other reason we don't want people fooling around with it, we can go ahead and restrict the editing. And deal with things like that. All right. So we can, in the view mode, we can put it in read mode. In other words, we're going to see it as it would appear when we when it were printed. Okay, that's interesting. Right, and you'll notice it wipes out the ribbon and everything. All right, so I hit Control Z to go back. It doesn't go back. It's laughing at me. Oh, I go back to Zoom, to View, excuse me, not Zoom. And let's see, the navigation pane. No, that's not it. Show comments, layout. Well, damn it.
What if you press escape?
Oh, good thinking. All right, so pressing escape gets us out of that mode. I had tried Control Z, which should be go back to, undo the last thing I did, but that didn't affect it. So a print layout shows us how it's gonna print out. A web layout, it just makes it so that as long as we are writing, it's gonna be like it's a scroll. It's just constantly new stuff is added to the bottom. Of course, I want print layout in this case, although I have used web layout in classes where I'm having to create the outline of the class as I'm going along. All right, so we can look at the ruler. You can see here we have our ruler. We can put in grid lines. Okay, I say we can put in grid lines. I'm not seeing them on here. Usually I use grid lines on PowerPoint more. We could zoom in on part on the document. Right here, it's gone back to 100%. Usually, usually I go to at least 200% so that students can see the document. We can look at it as multiple pages or one page. I never really used this feature, the window feature, in Word. I often use it in Excel. Macros, we have no, I don't believe we have any macros. No, we do not. So you can't use those if you don't have them. And properties, it just tells you about the document. Who wrote it? You'll notice it says that it's student 325 that wrote it. On my office computer, it says that I am the person that wrote it. Okay, and there you go. Bob is your uncle. Other cliches as necessary. Are there any questions at this point? What about you home viewers? We know you're out there, we can hear you breathing over the phone. All right, apparently they would rather not reveal themselves. Little knowing that I can just look here and say, who have we got? All right, we got Dominic Chi and Jonathan Shanina. Okay, well, if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and call it a class. Are there any questions?
No.
All right, I would say go ahead and send me your file of homework number 6, and I will see you when the fields are white with daisies, or call it next Wednesday. Nothing like a newly laundered mask.
Gross.
What, you don't wanna wash your mask?
That means you know what an old one is.
Well, you know, it's got that kind of detergent-y smell. So I'll go with that. All right. Of course, Victoria, we're not all rich like you and can afford disposable masks.